It is the 12th of the 8th, 2025. The time is 7 minutes past 8. That means only one thing, that there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. It is Talk It Tuesday. Sumo, Claire, George, aka Crackosaurus, F1 boy, Sir John Perry. We will go long, or I try desperately to go long today, because there are loads of things that we need to get through. Sir Lewis Hamilton, we need to talk about his promises to Ferrari and his contract extension, 2+1 potentially, where so many F1 aficionados thought previously it was a 1+1. We will talk about it. Tsunoda-san being warned by Dr. Helmut Marko that he might not have a place after the summer break, because that's when they assess the performance and so therefore the value of their drivers in real time and their ability to remain as a going concern. Dr. Helmut Marko insinuating that the sword of Damocles might be wielded on the head of one Tsunoda-san sooner rather than later. So too, I want to talk about UFC. The North American TV rights deal with ESPN for F1 is coming to an end, just as it has done with the UFC, the premier mixed martial arts organisation in the world. Yesterday, they announced the deal, $7.7 billion over the course of 7 years. That's $1.1 billion US dollars per year, in conjunction with Paramount. But what does that mean for their relationship with ESPN? And there are dotted parallel lines between that circumstance and Formula One, just about to move away from ESPN too. But what does that mean for Formula One and the sports landscape more broadly? So too, we'll talk about Checo Perez, because rumour and speculation is to be believed he's going to be back on the grid in 2026 without one Christian Horner. Who would have thunk it? That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. No further questions, Your Honour. Full stop. New paragraph. A 2026 F1 grid with Checo, but no Christian Horner. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing here? Let's talk about Lewis Hamilton first, because he said a couple different things about Frederick Vasseur's contract extension. So too, he wants to make sure that, per his notes that he's been sending round to the Ferrari engineers, that they are taking heed of his counsel. You will recall a couple of weekends back at the Canadian Grand Prix, Sir Lewis Hamilton was shocked and surprised to see the ineptitude with which Ferrari work. It's like, I've been here a gazillion times. I've won a gazillion Grand Prix around the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, and I don't understand why these guys work like this. His words, it made no sense. He's now looking to institute for a technical and personnel overhaul. The human resource aren't fit for purpose. Reminiscent of one Adrian Newey's words a couple of weeks back when he interviewed with AstonMartin.com, saying then that your ability to win races and championships, therefore, in Formula One are by dint as a function of your ability to get and keep good people. It is no coincidence, chat, that all of the god tier personnel have long left Red Bull. And where are Red Bull now? Of course, I'm talking about Courtenay, I'm talking about Marshall, I'm talking about Wheatley, I am talking about Horner too. And of course, I'm talking about the last airbender, the one that they call Adrian Newey. All of them have not long left. And all of a sudden, the RB21 is an SH1T box. Coincidence? For the avoidance of doubt, correlation, full stop, causation. The former does not imply the latter. But Lewis Hamilton isn't leaving this thing to chance. He wants to see the changes, and not 2026 or 2027. Now. Why? Because he's in it for the long haul. Despite some of his very self-deprecating comments over the past couple of weeks, every time it's me, I'm underperforming, it's not the car, you see the car is on pole, maybe they need to change the driver over here at Scuderia Ferrari. Notwithstanding Lewis's comments over the past couple of weeks, the rumour, if word on the F1 curb is to be believed, Lewis Hamilton multi-year contract might not be a 1+1. That was the word on the F1 curb in the first instance. 2+1 is what people are saying now, that Lewis could do this year and next year in 2026, and then exercise a 1-year extension, extending his tenure over at Scuderia Ferrari to 3 years. What does that mean, therefore, Ramifications now for the likes of Ollie Behrman, who will be looking over to Scuderia Ferrari with hopes and dreams and aspirations ad infinitum of getting behind the wheel of the red car with the yellow badge and black prancing horse on top. It's techie that as far as Lewis Hamilton's concerned, because lest we forget, Father Time, particularly in the weird and wacky world, the piranha tank of a sporting endeavour par excellence, that is the one that F's, is a young man's game. Lewis Hamilton, as at the time of writing, is 40 years old. He will be 43 soon to turn 44 in 3 years' time. Therefore, that, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. Will he be able to perform? These are non-rhetorical open questions now. If Lewis Hamilton is struggling in the first year of his tenure, fulfilling his dream, ticking off bucket list items, racing as a Ferrari driver, if he's struggling now, will he be able to do it then at the ripe old age of 43, soon to be 44? Non-rhetorical question, one for which I know not the answer. So too, this is important. I want to show you guys this because Charles Leclerc was spotted in the wild over the course of the summer break. Whoever said that this dude was a tight line driver, wide line settings, or at least behind the wheel of a go-kart? Take a look at this. He's so far down the road, he stops and waits and allows all of his mates to catch him up. That's Charles Leclerc in the front. You can see the traditional wide line opening up the geometric racing line. So typical Charles Leclerc. Oh, having mercy on his friends. And I don't hate that from Charles Leclerc. I love, you know what they should do, just like they used to do back in the day, not quite a race of champions, but pay the 20 drivers are all on the grid to jump in carts, equal machinery. Let's see who goes, who really has got the cojones, who really is the quickest of them all behind the wheels of a kart rather than an F1 car. I think that would be god tier, gangbusters. You can have that one for free. F1. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about driver silly season, it would be remiss of us not to mention the one that they call Tsunoda-san. Here's the context. Context is always key. Red Bull Racing have had themselves a second driver problem for the longest time now. This hasn't just occurred of late. It was Danny Rick in the first instance. It was Checo Perez. It was Lawson. And now it's Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda, I want to say that's 7 races, world record settings as far as second drivers at Red Bull are concerned, that he has scored no points. This is not good enough. Prior to his being dismissed, Christian Horner would say ad infinitum that we can't run a race on one leg. Ergo, we need 2 drivers. If Max Verstappen is going for the championship, he needs a rear gunner, a second driver, a wingman per se. And neither one of Tsunoda, nor Albon, nor Gasly before him, nor Ricciardo, nor Liam Lawson most recently, none of them have been able. Of course, it's the car's techie to drive. Of course, it's super on the nose, twitchy, unnerving, even said Alex Albon once upon a time. Of course, it's difficult. But yeah, and still, that doesn't overtype the strategic objective that the second driver will need to perform. Tsunoda-san has not been performing, and Dr. Helmut speaks to that circumstance over at Motorsport Week. For the avoidance of doubt, all F1 journos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Motorsport Week always have a cheeky dotted line into Dr. Helmut Marko, hence they always get the sound bites that count, the picks to click. Marko says, quote, our drivers are traditionally evaluated after the summer break. At the moment, everything as far as Tsunoda-san is still open. We look at performance, both positive and negative. Whoever drives next to Max Verstappen should stop trying to beat him. Oh, the humanity. Where do we go with this chat? That's chaos. What do you want your second driver to do then? Although I think the sentiment is lost in translation. I think what Dr. Helmut Marko is saying is that that's an exercise in futility, a waste of time and effort, because jumping in that second car, you have no hope of beating Maximilian Verstappen. He's that good and that acclimatized to his circumstance and the RB21 now, and it's very temperamental, mercurial handling dynamic. And so why waste time trying to beat that dude instead of focusing on your own objectives, optimizing for your own probabilities of optimizing for your potential, maximizing it. Therefore, why not focus on that? Dr. Helmut Marko continues, whoever drives next to Max must stop trying to beat him. He has to bring out the best for himself and the team. It is currently impossible to beat Max Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. Lest you are Lando and Oscar in a market-leading MCL39. Hey. Dr. Helmut Marko continues, Yuki has always been a protege of Honda and there are talks with them. Then we'll see which way it goes. So here's the problem for Tsunoda-san. The only reason why he was in that car in the first place was because Honda upped their sponsorship of him. The money, the remuneration per se that goes to Oracle Red Bull Racing from 10 to 20 million US dollars. That's why Tsunoda-san got the job. It had nothing to do with meritocracy. You will recall at Abu Dhabi last year, there was a post-race test and Tsunoda-san took part. Red Bull attendees said that that he impressed then, not least because of the level and granularity, the rich tapestry of his technical feedback. Dr. Helmut Marko was in attendance there, but Horner, Vache and Enrico Balba, the other key stakeholders in their decision making, they flew home straight away, which told you everything that you needed to know, that Liam Lawson would get the top job alongside Max as opposed to Tsunoda-san. Horner et al. Had already long made that decision. Why? Because Tsunoda-san is Honda's guy. Liam Lawson is an Oracle Red Bull Racing. And I say all that to say this. Tsunoda-san's card is marked because of what? Well, Aston Martin are working with Honda now, their exclusive engine manufacturer, as at 2026. They will cut ties, Honda and Red Bull Racing. They will no longer have a working relationship, not short, medium, nor long term. They will belong to Aston Martin F1. So why then would Red Bull Racing have an incentive to keep Yuki Tsunoda in that car, especially when Isaac Hadjar is going great guns, a young, hungry lion of a driver, a hot prospect, and so too a Red Bull Racing Junior program member. They've already injected investment ad infinitum into that dude. And if they were struggling before for guys coming up after the next one, well, you only need to take a look at Arvid Lindblad now. They've already tried to make sure that he's already had time in bloody FP1 this year. So what makes you think that Helmut Marko will renege on his previously stated assertion that Arvid Lindblad could be the next, not the next Max Verstappen, because remember that's an exercise in futility, but the next Red Bull Racing champion, a la a Sebastian Vettel. He'll be the next one. No, take this one to the bank. Next year, 2026, this is what the Red Bull family will look like. Isaac Hadjar will get the promotion to the big seat alongside Maximilian Verstappen. Not necessarily a stay of execution, but a mentor-mentee relationship per se. Liam Lawson will carry on in the Racing Bulls car, and then he will carry that alongside the one that they call Arvid Lindblad. Oh, and by the way, should we talk some UFC? You guys know that I like to purvey the broader landscape as far as what's going on in the world of sports and broadcasting. It's going to get techie. The UFC have signed a 7.7 billion. In fact, before I get into that, delusional says lazy. Crackosaurus Yuki goes whatever. Only Hadjar stays. I think Lawson will stay. Lawson will stay as well. I think they like Lawson, and particularly Lawson's been he hasn't been too bad. I know he had the massive trough when he was at Red Bull, Oracle Red Bull Racing, but since then he's not been too bad, has he? I think they'll keep him. Jomo, if you hadn't already, you're a legend, Jomo. So John, Honda goes, so does Yuki. Money talks 1000%, and Bull Feathers walks. Little camera, can you hear little Cat Cameron Jr. in the background? It's going to get techie. What's Safak saying? Issa, normal cars. If a car takes off in a straight line faster than the others, it's turned up. Lazy, I don't hate that. I mean, F1 skullduggery wouldn't be the first time. By the way, let me tell you about UFC. Something happened yesterday that blew the sports world wide open. It's a game changer, a paradigm shift of a deal. you know already that your boy's a big fan of mixed martial arts. I mean, the context is this, though, as far as Formula One is concerned. In North America, it's key. It is the jewel in the F1 crown, as at the time of writing, August 2025. North America is a growth market. Why? Because North America are sports obsessed. But if you're talking growth market, they've barely explored the surface of North America. Liberty Media, Stefano Domenicali, the commercial rights holder, the F1 movie. There's a couple of things that have broke America, the exact thing that the Beatles just struggled to do all the while. Drive to Survive in the first instance, the 2021 gangbuster season between Verstappen and Hamilton, a once-in-a-lifetime type season that had everything. Two drivers, the greatest of their generation, Mount Rushmore of F1, instant Hall of Fame, first round Hall of Fame, excuse me. You'll never see, I doubt very much whether you'll ever see a season as salacious and frictionful as 2021. So brand new people, F1 noobs and virgins alike, tuning into 2021 would have done like, inject it into my veins. That's why Attention Dollars Into the Sport did one of these. F1 movies done something similar, right? Record breaking settings as far as box office sales, 450 million, no, past 550 million US dollars now, as at the time of writing. Brad Pitt's biggest ever box office hit, and that tells you all you need to know, surpassing the previous top of World War Z so many cycles ago. What does that mean for F1 though? Well, of course, you would insinuate, you'd be right to infer that you'd expect Attention Dollars to do one of these in North America. So too, here's where this is important. Apple TV were the producers of that film. And as far as them taking home money, turning a profit, normally these big blockbuster films barely turn a profit because you inject so much money as far as capital investment at the outset. They may turn a profit, but it will be minimal. But what it served to do, the success of the F1 movie, courtesy of Brad Pitt's starring role, is enable Apple TV to understand the length and breadth of the potential upside of Formula One as a sport, because the F1 movie can't do what it does but for Drive to Survive, but for 2021, but for the gangbuster success of COVID. It cannot. And so it's important that you understand these chain causation effects. Now, what's important, Crackosaurus, you're a legend. I've been wrong about this year. I do like what I'm seeing from Liam in a rat. He was incredible, Crackosaurus. I don't hate that. There's a brilliant video on YouTube with Liam Lawson. He gets the challenge per Oracle Red Bull Racing is for him to run. I want to say it's the Goodwood Rally stage. We're dotting around here, but it's a Tuesday. We'll get back to this UFC, but I promise. Liam Lawson jumps in a rally car and is challenged to get within 15 seconds of a proper rally driver. Search for it on YouTube after this. It's god tier. I won't even spoil it. It's brilliant. Liam Lawson's not a bad peddler, but he's a JDM guy, isn't he? Have you seen Liam Lawson's YouTube channel? He only drives JDM. He drives the old the new Toyota Supra, if I recall. So he's always been a bit of an initial D guy. But I digress. Let me tell you about this UFC thing and how it impacts Formula One. Currently, they're in negotiations. Apple TV realised the not insubstantial upside of having F1 TV rights exclusivity in North America. Word on the F1 curb is that they're ready to pay anywhere up to 140 million US dollars. Chaos per year. This back in the day it was like 5 million, and then ESPN it upped to 80 million at the last round. Now, however, ESPN are not prepared to pay the 140 million that the Apple TV are. Techie, that 140 million. That's a lot of bloody money. Not the 1.1 billion that Paramount are paying the UFC, but it's still a lot of money. Here's why that's important. The UFC deal is marquee. It's a paradigm shift in the way that these broadcasters and TV channels, is that the word for them? The way that they're recognizing, understanding the value of sport going forward. Sport's always been seasonal. You don't need produce. Just send the cameras and the drama creates itself. You don't need to pay any actors because the sports franchise will do it. However, here's the point, chat, and here's where it gets a bit techie. As I understand it, per my colleagues in the mixed martial arts world, ESPN is different, right? That's the sports network. It's Stephen A. Smith. It was Skip Bayless before. It's Molly. It was Shannon Sharp previous to his indiscretions. It is the sports network in North America. It's the marquee one. Of course, Fox, it's NFL and NHL, etc. But as far as commentary and sports debate, there is a cachet with which ESPN comes. And so that the association, the relationship between ESPN and F1, granted, I know they don't give it as much airtime as they should, but nevertheless, there is it's the word that I'm looking for. There is an approval that comes with a relationship, a working relationship between a sports franchise and ESPN in North America. UFC, okay, so they've sold their soul to the devil quite literally, but 1.1 billion a year by dint of the Paramount deal is worth it, is it not? The question I'm asking, putting forth, is this: is the 140 million per year that Apple TV are going to pay apparently worth that disassociation with ESPN? You are losing the F1 gods and broadcasting, the attention dollar gods, giveth and they taketh away almost instantaneously. They're losing. They would be losing circa 60 million, but would they be gaining more than that by dint of the association with ESPN were they to keep it? That's the question, and I don't know the answer to. If we're talking North American sports media, over here in the UK, all I do is consume a bit of ESPN, a bit of Stephen A. That's how I get all of my North American sports information, I will be honest. So now that F1 won't have that association with ESPN, what happens next? Are Apple TV going to be able to do something equivalent? I don't know. You guys are going to have to let me know in the comments, because a lot of you guys, I understand that a lot of you guys who are in North America will know better than me, but I just thought it interesting hearing the news about the UFC deal, all the while we understand that Apple TV are willing to pay an additional 60 million this time round to acquire exclusive North American TV rights for the weird and wacky world that is the one that F's John. So John Perry, you're an absolute legend. If I have to pay for Apple TV sub, okay, but I better not have to pay extra to listen to Martin Rudder. You need your own broadcast, Sir John. I don't know how they're going to manage it. You know, I think they may take the international feed. If I have a hunch, I think they may take the international feed. That's just a hunch, but what do I know? ESPN is on a downfall. Is it really lazy? Jeez. Jorge says ESPN is struggling. Look at that. Maybe that's why they chose to come away. Also, worth noting as far as ESPN, and it's not directly related to F1, but the ESPN deal has always... Okay, so ESPN, UFC and its revenue structure has always been a function of pay-per-view. In this 1.1 billion per year, 7.7 billion over the course of 7 years, they've just done away with pay-per-view. That is chaos, unbelievable chaos. Can you imagine if F1 started to do they already do pay-per-view in the UK in effect, since you've got to pay for Sky Sports F1, which is anywhere up to £100 Great British pounds every single month. If you want the HTTV stuff, it's techie. Then techie things. Go on then, let's talk about Checo Perez, because it was always going to get techie. People have been talking about this for the longest time. They need two drivers. Cadillac F1, the 11th entrant to Formula 1, due to kick off again in 2026. Here's what you need to know about Cadillac F1. In the first instance, they're becoming the 11th entrant is mired in controversy for a couple of different reasons. You recall that Andretti did his best, his damnedest, to try and get a space on the grid. No doing, he was told. Sorry, Michael, you're too ham-fisted. You've got to learn to win, play the hearts and minds game. You've got to learn to shake some hands. So you're a legend as always. Thank you so much, mate. If you are a brand new member, get yourself over to Community tab. Get yourself on the Discord. We're starting now, by the way, for brand new members to just do chats offline. Crackersaurus was there the other day. Z, TWM, Michelle also. We're going to start to do those more often. Let me tell you about Checo. So the context. This is why Cadillac is controversial, is now, has always been. Andretti couldn't get it done because he cheesed off too many people. You remember him trying to strong arm the team principals, bringing a letter of support and saying, sign this, Get me on the grid. Like, what are you doing, Michael Andretti? This is not the way to go about fostering rapport. Not of billion-dollar team principals come shareholders mention their name, Toto the boy who cried wolf. It's all about fostering rapport, like kissing some babies' heads, shaking some hands. Michael Andretti, he didn't do it, but it feels like there was something that came in, kicked into play. As far as Cadillac F1, it was a different name in the first instance, and Michael Andretti was no longer associated with it. You saw that on the official filing. In the second instance, the GM Association had a part to play. Why? Well, because Mohammed bin Sulayem all of a sudden wanted to rush it through. Everybody was protesting previously, weren't they, as far as Andretti, blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, Cadillac F1 come along, a brand new name and a brand new attitude. All of a sudden, it's not team principals. Before we're saying, oh, if we're going to have another team, we need to make sure they're good to go in the medium term. It can't be fly by night. We can't have another HRT, another Marussia, another Toyota, because that's bad for the sport. It's even bad for the sport if we have another team and they're incapable of competing. Do you know what I mean? They can barely field the car. That would bring the name of Formula One, the brand, the sports franchise, bring its name into disrepute. We cannot have that. That was the official party line, and I don't disagree with it. So too, you've got the bloody money and all of the Vamos Checo. Okay, we're gonna get to. Of course, the divvying up the money is not something that these look. If I've built a house, I built it up from the foundations. Don't come and help me when I'm about to put the bloody roof on. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way that these teams will feel. That in the hard times, pre-Drive to Survive, they dragged F1 kicking and screaming back to the mountaintop. And now you want to come in when the valuation of all the teams is in excess of 1 billion by dint of the cost gap. No, I'm not having it. That was the attitude of all the teams. They didn't want to allow Cadillac F1 to get a slice of the pie now, oh no. And then you've got the Concord agreement that's to be renegotiated soon. And you've also got the dilution fee, rumoured now to be 450 million that Cadillac are going to have to pay, that will be divided amongst the existing 10 teams. Vamos Checo. Oh, la humanidad is going to get techie. But here's why the Cadillac F1 thing, I think, ultimately went through. DP World, the CEO of DP World is brother, allegedly, to one Mohammed bin Sulayem, head of the FIA. There were associations between said brother of DP World and General Motors. DP World are a logistics firm said to look after the logistics of General Motors. Therein lies all of the fostering rapport and currying favour that you need. Don't think for a second that those two things aren't linked. And again, it is a poffinier to a certain extent. But why all of a sudden, why did Andretti take so long? And then they just rushed through the Cadillac F1 thing. But I digress. Cadillac F1 are going to have problems. I'm going to go through all of the struggles first before we talk about the good stuff. Cadillac F1 will struggle in the first instance. Why? Because you win and lose at the altar of your experience. And Cadillac F1 have none. They need to go and sign some Paddy Lowe's, and you know what I mean? Loden, of course, is the CEO or team principal, but they're going to need some more experienced F1 relevant, experienced minds if indeed they're going to have some success, because it's difficult, this F1 thing. It's hard. I mean, you see Mercedes, how long have they been in Formula One? Ages, since 2009 now. 2010, even after Brawn, it's 15 years, and they still bloody struggle with all of their might and financial resource. So you're going to tell me Cadillac F1 are going to come in and start winning races in their first season? I think it's tough for them to do that. They will need a team and some expertise, and moreover, they'll need some drivers who can bring some of the aforementioned. There's been chat over the past couple of weeks about Valtteri Bottas potentially. I would argue that of the drivers available, he jumps off the page. That's the name that you really want. Valtteri Bottas, former Mercedes, on his day when he'd had his Weetabix, gave Sir Lewis Hamilton fits. And if you're doing F1 maths, that tells you all you need to know. True, in 2021, he went missing at critical times. That's something for which I will be unable to forgive Valtteri Bottas. Went missing. His absence was instrumental in deciding which way that championship went. And then as a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan, as I am now, I can never forgive Valtteri Bottas for doing that. However, is he the best of a bad bunch? I mean, he's down the line from Checo, in my humble opinion. I'll be honest. He is down the line from Checo. He's a better driver, more experienced, and faster, as at the time of writing. So the chatter is about Bottas potentially already agreed an agreement in principle with Cadillac F1, notwithstanding the chatter was meant to be about, or at one point at least, the chatter was that Cadillac F1 favoured an experienced driver, pairing him with a younger, hungrier lion. So before it was Bottas alongside, I don't know, a Felipe Drugovich, maybe an Alex Den or a Teo Pourchaire. That was the chat, the rumour on the F1 Cup. Now, however, it sounds like Checo Perez. You want to swap out Valtteri's name and put Checo Perez in there. Thomas Mayer, for the avoidance of doubt, context is key here. And Thomas Mayer of Planet F1, for the avoidance of doubt, all F1 journos are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Planet F1 is a bit techie, but Thomas Mayer doesn't bat 1,000, but he does come close. Here's what he's got to say about Checo Perez. Checo Perez is set to return to Formula 1 in 2026. Planet F1 has learned, with an announcement on his future expected in the coming weeks. The Mexican driver is set to rejoin the grid after sitting out F1 in 2025, following Red Bull's decision to part ways with him at the conclusion of last year. Oh, and by the way, to that point, isn't Checo Perez still dining out on the 20-something million that he got paid by Red Bull in terms of settlement? Surely, chaos. I mean, this is like when you get a cheeky bit of gardening leave and go and find yourself a new job before the gardening leave money runs out. Chaos from Checo Perez. And for the avoidance of doubt, the irony's not lost on me that Checo Perez could well be back on the grid in 2026 before Christian Horner's found himself another seat at the F1 table. Who would have thunk it? Multiple sources, writes Thomas Mayer, have told Planet F1 that Checo Perez has reached an agreement in principle with Cadillac that will see him return to the grid in 2026, with an announcement expected the weekend of the Italian Grand Prix in a few weekends' time. Confirmation of his return would spell an end to a year on the sidelines, with a Mexican release from his Red Bull contract at the conclusion of the 2024 season. The timing of this being too late for Perez to find a seat elsewhere on the grid. In recent months, however, backed by a new man. Let me tell you about this actually. There's been a lot of chatter about Checo Perez. If you read between the lines, if you examine the tea leaves, you could see that Checo Perez was doing a lot of restructure around his team. And people said, well, that's proof positive that he's set to come back. Why would he be doing that if he didn't harbour aspirations to be on the grid in 2026? And Planet F1 confirmed this in recent months. Backed by a new manager, it's understood that Checo has explored a number of options to return to the F1 grid, with communication maintained with Cadillac throughout the year. And Valtteri Bottas recently said that he hasn't signed yet. I think they just go Valtteri, chat. Let's go Valtteri and Checo, right? Two experienced hairs. I don't think, as much as it sounds counterintuitive, as much as it sounds like me being an F1 muggles, an abbot of unreason, to spurn, to waste the potential of, I don't know, a Felipe Drugovich, I think that's the move. Checo Perez brings in the 20 million a year by dint of Super Mercado Libre even, and Carlos Slim sponsorship. And Bottas, I mean, he's just a very fast peddler once he's had his Weetabix. Checo is and was better than Valtteri Bottas. Oh, the humanity, Nando say it's not so. I'm not sure I can agree. Steal an engine, artifact of a simpler time. Oh, damn you, Dean. Would not put Checo in the seat over Bottas. I agree with you, Michelle. I concur. Not over Bottas. Maybe next to, but not instead of. I could have all the plans for an engine, and I'm better off starting from scratch than trying to reverse engineer that manufacturing. Go on then to that point as well, since we're talking about the polemic circumstance of Cadillac F1 becoming the 11th entrant on the grid. This engine stuff, they're borrowing from Ferrari, aren't they, for the first few years? All the while in the background. One of the reasons we were told, at least, why they were being rubber stamped so quick was because GM, brand new, they're going to be an engine manufacturer. When you have a GM engine, that does one of these. A GM engine tied floats or F1 boats. That was what we were being sold on, only to learn that the GM engine will only be ready for the final 2 years of this engine spec. What are we doing here? I mean, can you spell inconsistency? It's chaos. It is chaos. So you mean to tell me this, that Cadillac F1 will be pummeling, General Motors more pertinently, will be pummeling anywhere up to $100 million per year in R&D to design and develop an engine that they will only use for 2 years? What are we doing here? This makes no sense. This is F1 baloney. Like, you just can't, you couldn't substantiate nor justify that at any board, in front of any chair or chief exec, any exec, C-suite exec level bod worth their metal. In excess of 100 million for 3 years to develop an engine that you'll have to change after 2. What am I missing here, chap? There's something going on. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but there's something going on there that my very noddy brain cannot comprehend. Sorry, but Checo is way better than Bottas, Safak. Okay, go on then, settle this. Padmeister, I can't. I just think that's not financial malfeasance. That's what that is. You have to be a proper monetary abbot of reason to think that that's an acceptable thing. Do you know what I mean? When you do the MPV, it just doesn't stack up. Yeah, no, that's fine. Invest 100 million per year in R&D money, 100 million per year in R&D money, only for us to revamp the engine. Just carry on borrowing Ferraris. I think that's what happened in the end. They'll just keep borrowing Ferraris for an extra 2 years. But the problem is they're in F1 because of the promise of a GM engine. So it's like already you have this mismatch, this expectation, reality mismatch on which they've sailed into F1. Honestly, that sounds like GM accounting. It's Crackosaurus. It's nonsense. But word on the F1 curb is that F1 is the hottest ticket in town because of the cost cap, 130 million US dollars. You reduce, therefore, the operating cost of every single team, increasing, therefore, the market value of each team. That's why you get these crazy anywhere between $1 and $4 billion, depending on whether you're talking about Red Bull or Mercedes or Haas. All of a sudden, you've just because you limit their spend. Remember, back in the day, they used to spend Mercedes would happily spend 400-500 million on research and bloody bits and bobs in season. Now they can't do it. So you've limited, because of the rules and regs, the extent to which they can spend. They can fat up their operating cost line, and because of that, it grows their EBITDA, their profit line. It's the rules and regs, and it's genius. That's why GM, Cadillac F1 need to bring something. Otherwise, they'll be seen to be asset stripping now, venture capitalist settings, and that's exactly the thing. Like a fly-by-night team, North American or otherwise. That's exactly what F1 doesn't need, because it will bring shame on the family name. Legend Checo used to school Nico, Ocon, Stroll, and helped Max with his tainted first championship. Nando, I said already that he was instrumental, right? He was just quick enough to be dangerous, to be an impediment to Sir Lewis Hamilton, and that has to mean something. I love a bit of Checo in F1. Do you, Joe? I don't know. Although it'd be hypocritical of me to say, well, Checo was washed and then but bring back Bottas. They were operating at the similar level towards the end there. What would Cam do without Checo? I know. I'd have nothing to talk about. Auto workers unions might burn GM down if they did. I just don't. I can't justify it with my financial cap very firmly on. Cost of a caddy going up astronomically. Cost cap essentially meant the people who built the teams lost their jobs. Potentially, it's techie. It's very, very techie, that. But with my venture capitalist cap on firmly, Crackosaurus, aka George. It just makes more sense. It's the hottest ticket in town now, right? To have a $1 billion entity into which you can only spend 100 million a year, or 135. is perfect. You can't write it. It's financial alchemy. That's why you've got so many guys and girls, including legends, that are lucky sons, so desperate to get themselves a cheeky seat on the grid. Escalade going 120k per unit. Oh, the humanity, said John Cass. Like, where do people think that money was going? R&D mostly, eh? Cracker sauce, I'm guessing, without perusing through the minutiae of an F1 team's P&L to 2 decimal places. I reckon most of it's R&D and parts, of course, when somebody like a Latifi or a Jack Doohan yeets it into the barrier yet again. It's techie. Right, guys, I'm going to run. You guys have been legends. The F1's going to get... I'm telling you, the news cycle isn't trophy, but it's been one of these for now. Over the next couple of weeks, though, I'm telling you, it's going to be George Russell, it's going to be Checo, it's going to be Bottas, Drogovic too. Bless him, he still can't get a go in an F1 car proper. Sat there on the bloody Aston Martin pit wall. Best ever work experience. I wanted to talk about... look... Let me tell you about this. I put the bloody the poll up on the community tab. Who do you think is going to win the championship? I was watching back. I must have watched it at least 30, 40 times this morning. The Oscar Piastri overtake on Max Verstappen. This dude, chap. Right. Is he the one now? Is he Max Verstappen levels or Sir Lewis in his prime levels? Not now. Not yet. It's too soon. It's his 3rd season, for Pete's sake. It would be disingenuous to even try and draw that comparison. Is he well on his way? You bet your bottom dollar is. I was looking at Oscar Piastri. Every once in a while you see a driver who's about to become great. Do some things in quick succession that kind of knock down that greatness door. Here's what I'm seeing from Oscar Piastri. In the space of 12 months, here's what he's done. He's learned... He's instituted for some continuous improvement. Gone are the days of poor tyre management and poor racecraft. Now he's missed the forensic bloody car placement. That's who Oscar Piastri is. He's overtaken Charles Leclerc, best overtake of the year last year at Baku. He overtook Lando Norris's teammate, who's not a bad peddler himself, at chicane 2 in Monza. What? He overtook Max Verstappen, granted in a quicker car, into turn 1 at Miami after setting him up through turn 17, a la Sir Lewis, lap 48 2021 Brazil. Like, what are we doing here? Oscar is coming, chat. Even take a look at the bloody maneuver on Lando through Spa again. I was like, what? How do you get so close and not crash? How do you get so close and not crash? I don't know. I think Oscar's got this. And I think ultimately, barring accidents and reliability issues, I think when all is said and done this year, I'm not sure it will even be close. What's the gap now? 9 points. If they end, if race 24 comes and goes, and the gap between Oscar, take this to the bank and we'll rewatch it if Lando makes a fool of me come December. But I will be extremely shocked, surprised. I will eat my words if Lando Norris is within 25 points, 1 race victory of Oscar Jack Piastri when all is said and done in the season that is 2025. Ergo, OJP to the moon, based upon what we've seen. Jeddah, oh my gosh, Isa, like madness. It's chaos. He's on something different, that Oscar Piastri dude. And you only need to look at the most recent evidence, right? Not recency bias, because we'll never ever sacrifice truth value nor objectivity at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the moniker, not least of which recency and or confirmation bias. But yeah, and still, if Lando's within 25 points of Oscar Piastri come the end of the season, Lando will be twice the driver that I think he is currently, because Oscar Piastri is coming between now and next time. The prosecution rests no further questions.